Hey folks, welcome back to Metal Shop Steve. Today we are going back to do another Fast 5 video. As you may recall, I did a Fast 5 Metallica, which ended up not being so fast, but I'll tell you what, to review 5 albums all at once, it was kind of fast. So today we are going to do another one of those. First of all, let me just go ahead and remind you that if you like my channel, please subscribe. That helps me to be able to bring you better content more often, and do the things you want to do. So, quick reminder, please do that. And then without further ado, here we go. This is actually going to be strikingly similar to the Metallica Fast 5 in that the 5 albums I picked for Megadeth today, are the first 5 studio releases from Megadeth. And even more than that, there are quite a few sort of parallels between these two groups. As you might imagine, they are both members of the so-called 4 horsemen of thrash, kind of the big 4 groups there, along with Anthrax and Slayer. And also they had the notorious distinction of sharing Dave Mustaine, at least for a little bit. Dave Mustaine, the lead singer of Megadeth, started out his career with Metallica and was kind of transitioned to a new group, we'll say. Just want to make a quick shout out. It was just announced recently, within the past day or so, that Dave Mustaine, he made the announcement that he has throat cancer, so we just want to say best wishes to Dave. Actually, interestingly enough, I had this video planned before I even heard about that. So anyway, best of wishes to Dave Mustaine. Hopefully a full recovery there. And with that, here we go. So first of all, we're just going to go in chronological order. We're going to talk through the first 5 albums of the Fast 5. And then at the very end, I will go ahead and give you my ranking of where I think these 5 albums fall. So, very first one, starting off, we have Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good. This is a 1985 release, we'll say. Again, very similar to the way Metallica went through their career. The first album was very raw, I don't want to say underproduced, but it wasn't overproduced, certainly. So it was kind of very raw production on the whole thing. Really good, solid thrash here. No surprises, nothing fancy, nothing crazy. It is just a good, solid thrash album. Very consistent all the way through. And really, the songs don't differ a whole lot here. That's not saying they're the same and boring, but they're just good and solid. And another thing that I'll say right away, again, going back to Dave Mustaine, he's kind of a love-hate type of rock voice, and I understand that. I know why. Because it's a very distinctive voice. Even from the very beginning, his voice really is kind of the same. I mean, it gets a little bit deeper as his career goes on, but for the most part, the Dave Mustaine you hear in this album is the Dave Mustaine that you hear now. Whereas when we talked about Metallica, James Hetfield's voice, you could really hear just how young and green it was in the early albums and how it deepened and matured through. But here, I think vocally, Dave Mustaine is very consistent the whole way through. So, some of my favorite tracks here on the debut album, The Skull Beneath the Skin. I really like that one a lot. Moving down the list here, Rattlehead, I like that one a lot. The Chosen Ones, I like that. And then another one here, Mechanics. If it sounds familiar to you, probably with good reason, because it borrows just a little bit from the 4 Horsemen from Metallica, because Dave Mustaine was in on that when some of those early Metallica songs were being written, and I think he kind of took it personally that he was shown the door. So there is definitely something that you will recognize if you compare those 2 songs. Again, overall, pretty solid album for a debut. Nothing fancy, nothing too crazy, except for some reason there is a weird-ish cover of These Boots. These boots are made for walking, Nancy Sinatra, back in the day. I don't know why. I know that apparently the song was supposed to be kind of a parody of that, but the words had to be changed around, so it's just a really weird track on here. And that's all I'll really say about that. My versions of these CDs also have bonus tracks, which are mostly demos. I'm not really going to go through those because they're not part of the original recordings, but there you go. First album, Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good. Moving right along, number 2, 1986, Peace Sells, but Who's Buying? This is where they have, they've introduced their mascot here on this album. So if you're looking for this guy, here he is. Again, this is kind of, again, so similar to a lot of the way that the bands, especially thrash bands, the early guys, the Four Horsemen went through it. You start to evolve a little bit. And again, I think that there's some evolution going on here. The sound has definitely evolved. They're trying a few new things musically, instrumentally, which is good. Bands need to do that. It's not to say that you need to deviate from your sound, but it's never bad to try new things, and they do. They start to get a little bit more mature musically, and just kind of overall in everything. Now, one of the things, especially these days, that Megadeth is known for is they're very socially conscious, and you start to hear that a little bit, and that definitely picks up as their albums go along. So the opening song, Wake Up Dead, there's kind of a weird, creepy intro to that song, and then it picks up and it kicks in and it starts to rock. But at the very beginning it caught me off guard the first time I ever heard it, because it is just kind of a weird, creepy little storyline with Dave Mustaine's weird, creepy voice. So going down the list here, some more songs that I really liked. And this one was tough because there are a lot of songs on this album that I really liked. The Conjuring is a nice, I'd say it's, excuse me, it's kind of a nice grinder. There are moments where Megadeth slows it down just a tiny bit and grinds it out a little bit. That's one of them. Peace Sells is another great track off of here. Devil's Island could be my favorite song on the album. I have it marked here because sometimes it's just really hard to pick a favorite. But Devil's Island I really like a lot. Bad Omen, and then My Last Words, I have that one marked as well because that one, along with Devil's Island, are probably my two favorite tracks here. Although really, for an 8-song CD, I like just about every song on here. There is one track on here, right in the middle, Good Morning, MOURNING, /Black Friday. And this is really what I would consider their first foray into that longer, epic type of song that Metallica started to get famous for in their middle albums. It's a little bit slower, it's more like a symphony, it's got changing tempos, different parts. So that's the first time you really notice something like that from Megadeth, and that's right in the middle of the album. So you'll hear that too. Again, overall, I think it is a really solid album. I really like this album a lot, and that's it. Peace Sells, but Who's Buying? Moving on. Next on the list, 1988. This was kind of a trouble spot for Megadeth. So far, so good. So what? That's this album. And the band started to have some issues at this point, I believe, with drugs, with alcohol, just with general bad things that can negatively affect a band if they go the wrong way. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the band was not super happy with this album themselves. So I think if you listen to it, it's probably understandable the way they felt about it. But here we go. I would say it's darker, it's a little bit darker, it's a little grindier. I like that word, I just made it up, you can use it. Grindier, it's grindier. It's a little less thrashy for pure thrashiness than the previous albums. But it feels a little disjointed. I think that's a good word for me to describe. Less cohesive. It is not, it doesn't have the flow of the previous albums or future albums, I would say. So yeah, this did kind of seem like a rough spot for me. Nonetheless, there are still some good songs on the album. Into the Lungs of Hell, which is the opener, and it's an instrumental. That's a pretty good track. I like that a lot. And then there is, I know we talked about that weird cover on the first album of These Boots, but they actually have a cover of Anarchy in the UK on here. It seems like a lot of people have covered that. But on here, it's actually a pretty good cover, and frankly, one of the better songs on the album, one of the best songs on the album. Again, it's an 8-song release, but otherwise, there's not a lot about this album that I really like, so that's probably a giveaway as to where this is going to land in my ranking at the end. But nonetheless, Megadeth, so far so good, so what? All right, moving on into 1990. After the rough patch, after they got over the troubles, they came out with Rust in Peace. Again, just so the career path, just so strikingly similar to the way Metallica went. And I don't know, maybe that's karma, maybe that's the universe linking these bands forever. But there it is. This band, this album is just so chock full of great songs. I mean, I can read off the ones I like here, but it just musically it's better, instrumentally it's better. It is, you know, to put it up against other Megadeth albums, we can rank those where we want to, but following up So Far So Good, which made this seem like a masterpiece, and probably, frankly, because it was kind of a masterpiece. Great, great, great album here. And also another good sign is that they came off of that into this new album, not forgetting how to shred, which is really important. You don't want to lose where you came from. I don't know, hard to pick great songs here when they're all pretty great. Holy Wars, just a really great kick-in-the-mouth opener. You know, it's got some tempo change in there, but it is just one of my favorites on the album. But really, to list the rest of the favorites, I mean, I'll do it, but it's most of the album, actually. Hangar 18, which you've probably all heard of. Take No Prisoners, maybe my favorite song on the album, just a really bombastic, loud, thrashy, aggressive song. I love that. Poison Was the Cure, Tornado of Souls, and then finally, Rust in Peace, Polaris, also kind of vying for my favorite song on the album as well. And you know, for those of you who did watch my Metallica Fast 5, you might see a pattern here with how I am kind of working through these albums. So, that's Rust in Peace. Finally, we head up to the last of the final, the first 5 of the Fast 5, 1992 release, Countdown to Extinction. And for those of you not really that familiar with Megadeth, I'm sure you know this album. You at the very least know Symphony of Destruction, which was a pretty major hit for them. Before MTV stopped playing music, that was a big song in rotation, a big video. This was, again, I've done it, I'm not going to apologize anymore. I've done enough comparing Metallica and Megadeth, but for Megadeth, this was their Black Album compared to Metallica's Black Album. Pretty much released pretty close together, and they both represented a departure in the traditional style for these bands. Not saying that it's completely all gone, but it is certainly a departure from the straight thrash of earlier Megadeth. And it's got a full sound, it's got great production. Really, I think here, it still rocks. It rocks so hard, but the lyrics and the vocals are, for me, kind of the star of the show of this album. So for me, not only was it the band coming into its own, but it was also Dave Mustaine really kind of coming into his own and showing just a whole lot of range, a whole lot of versatility. That being said, again, hard to pick favorites from this album, but in my opinion, the first 4 songs right in a row, and I love it when it happens like this, you just get blasted right away by the first 4 songs and you're hooked and you're done. You're going to listen to the rest of the album because the opening was so great. Skin of My Teeth, Symphony of Destruction, Architecture of Aggression, Foreclosure of a Dream, and then even it goes into the 5th song, Sweating Bullets, which was the other hit from this album. You may recognize it. He's like, "Hello, me, it's me again," kind of talking a little bit there. I apologize for that, but you get the idea. Countdown to Extinction, a great song, a great social message there. Just, again, rock, 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 rock here. And I'm not going to compare it to Metallica's Black Album in terms of which one was better, you know, all that kind of stuff. Metallica had certainly more hits off of it, but this was their big commercially successful album. I think it's time to rank the albums here now. We've gone through a little bit of what makes each one unique and great, so here we go. At number 5, no surprise here. You already kind of knew this was coming. So Far, So Good, So What? And So What is kind of really how I feel about it. It's just, it's a subpar album. These guys could do better. They did better. Fortunately, something like this was not enough to break the band down, but it's kind of a low point for them to rise back up from. So number 5, So Far, So Good, So What? Number 4, nothing against this album, but in general, as bands evolve, they get better. So their debut album, Killing Is My Business, number 4, and that's pretty much all there is to it. It's not a bad album, it's just early and it's a little rough around the edges, and they got better. So that's how I feel about that. Number 3, Peace Sells, but who's buying? Again, I loved this, you remember? I told you, I loved it. It was a great album. A lot of great songs. Hard to pick favorites on here. But it's just another one of those things. For me, as the band keeps evolving, their stuff keeps getting better. So, number 3, Peace Sells. That leaves us with the 2 final contenders for my favorite album here. We've got Rust in Peace and Countdown to Extinction. And I told you I might be giving something away if you watched my Metallica video, because I kind of did the same thing here. You know, kind of wavered back and forth as to which one was going to be my favorite. So this one was not quite as difficult for me as the Metallica. Actually, Metallica wasn't that difficult either. While as much as I love Countdown to Extinction, I have to say that Countdown to Extinction enters at number 2 on my list. I don't want to say just barely, but it wasn't too huge of a win. So number 2, Countdown to Extinction, which means number 1, Rust in Peace. My favorite Megadeth album, Rust in Peace. Because similar to the way I graded Metallica with And Justice for All being my favorite, it still had the old flavor of Metallica, but it brought a lot of the new elements along, and it was just that perfect combination. And I feel the same way about Rust in Peace. The perfect combo of old Megadeth, the thrash, the aggression, with the new, maturing, a little bit more sophisticated Megadeth. It's all here in one package. So number 1, Rust in Peace, my favorite Megadeth album, and I think it's probably going to go in my car right now as I go take my next drive. So there you have it, Fast 5, Megadeth, and that is going to be the video for today. I have a lot more great stuff coming up this week. We did a few unboxings and a few kind of off-the-path things over the last few videos. We're going to get back into some pure rock this week. Pretty soon I'm going to be introducing you to a band or two. I'm going to get back to my roots. I'm going to do another hair metal type of video. I'm going to also throw in one of my favorite albums. We're going to do that. And we are going to announce the contest winner, the 100 subscribers contest winner, coming up soon. So I hope you'll join me for all that. Again, please subscribe, and that lets me know that people are still enjoying what I do as much as I enjoy what I do. Comment, like my videos if you like them, and come back and see me again. Thanks.